What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Behind the Glass Sports Podcast. Thanks for tuning in, whether you're watching on YouTube or listening via Spotify, Apple Podcast, Anchor, Google Podcast, Pocket Cast, Breaker, Overcast, and Radio Public. We want to thank you for joining us. Happy Friday before the 4th of July. Hopefully you have some big plans, but safe plans, people. Don't be stupid. We're still in a pandemic here. You can follow us on Twitter if you'd like, at Brandon_Stoll for Brandon, at Stephen Preach Jr. for myself. It's been a while since we've been on. Had some things go on, but we're here. We're back. We got a lot to get to this show.
Yeah, right when
Chris
we
Harris.
take 2 shows off. Hey, let's just,
everything
sports
happens.
world, lose your mind.
Yeah. But you know what? It's good for us because it's a jam-packed show. Chris Harris poo-pooed on the Drew Lock hype train. Garrett Bowles posted out a workout video. Sledgehammers and dunking basketballs, baby. I have a feeling he will not hold anybody this year. We'll see if that works out. Cam Newton gets a new team. Preseason, possibly getting slashed. There's some mixed reports on that. One NFL team became the first to acknowledge that they possibly will not have fans at their games this year. One team is changing their name. Finally, potentially, and the NBA has another bubble apparently coming out. There's a lot to get to today. But first and foremost, I mean, where do you want to start? I mean, there's so much to get to. Where do you want to get to?
Let's get to this Garrett Bowles thing. We'll get to the title of the stream and the title of the video, all that stuff later. But let's get to this Garrett Bowles thing because I just think this is hilarious.
So for those who don't know, Garrett Bowles, and if you're listening and you have no idea who Garrett Bowles is, he's the best hugger in the world. He gives great bear hugs. He will keep you warm, snuggled. He can also heal you, heal himself. He has great healing powers. There's one time it looked like he broke his ankle, was carted off. He was waving the fans, tears in his eyes. He thought his career was over. The next day he was able to practice full health. I don't know how he does it. He's a magic healer. So great hugger, magic healer. That's all you needed to know. He also just happens to be the left tackle of the Denver Broncos too and leads the league in holding every year. But that's neither here nor there. He posted a workout video this past week, I guess to hype up fans, and his caption was the little shh emoji, with the finger over the mouth, kind of to shush the haters. I don't know, maybe shush those that say he hugs people too much. He just wants to give love. That's all he wants to do. But in his video, he did a lot of things. He sledgehammered some tires. He bench pressed with some chains on. That's how you know it's serious. When you get the chains on the bench, that's how you know you mean business. He also, for some reason, threw a ball off of a backboard and dunked it. Not sure what that does for anything, but that was there too. And to make things even better, it was, I believe, in slow motion and black and white. So there you go. And he had music in the background. Total hype video. That's what you need in today's age. Does that give you confidence that Garrett Bowles will not lead the league in penalties this year?
No, but I also think he's gonna have a better year, and part of this, why I want to talk about this, and this kind of leads into our expectations of like this offensive line in general, and why they didn't pick a tackle at all in the draft, let alone in the first round, where they had an opportunity to trade up, and get and go ahead and get someone. So, look, if you look at last year, and he led the league in holds last year, but only through he only had only one holding penalty in the last 5 games. I believe, is that correct?
He had one accepted call.
Well, how many declined then?
Well, that's the thing. We can go back and look at the numbers, but people say, and that's what people have to realize when they say, "Oh, well, he didn't get called for holding as much." No. He got called for holding still. The team just didn't accept it because it just happened to be the scenario. Right. They didn't have to accept it.
I guess my point is look, they went 4-1 in those last 5 games, and the offensive line didn't change. Drew Lock didn't go out there and get killed. He didn't get hit really a lot, I don't think. So, and the offensive line didn't change. What did? It was the quarterback. And like, the offensive line is important, but there's a reason. Can you name 3 Hall of Fame offensive linemen that Peyton Manning had?
3 Hall of Fame offensive linemen?
In 18 years. Seriously, how many Hall of Fame caliber offensive lineman did he have?
Is Jeff Saturday a Hall of Famer?
Yeah, I think so.
There's one. I mean,
Okay.
that would be a better question for Colts fans because I have no idea. I mean, he definitely didn't have any
Even with
here.
Brady, has Brady
Well,
ever had a Hall of Fame type of? He's had
he's
good.
had really good
He's
linemen.
had good line. He's
I
had
mean, I
good
can't
line,
remember their names.
but in the past, there's been issues though. You know, and they've constantly changed offensive linemen. I mean, here in Denver alone with Peyton, it wasn't anything. They had he went off to Jacksonville, the guard, uh,
Zane Beatles.
Zane Beatles. He was solid. Orlando Franklin was solid. I believe
Ryan
he
Clady.
had Ryan Clady for his first year, right?
He had Peyton. Yeah, he had Ryan Clady that the first 2 years, I believe
First
it
two
was.
years. So
But Ryan Clady got hurt that Super Bowl year and didn't play.
like that's the thing is, I mean, I just don't think that it's as important as we've been kind of talking about over the last 2 years. We see it more because the Broncos have had terrible quarterbacks and they don't get rid of the ball quickly. They don't, they just can't move in the pocket. And it's not just like they can't go out and run with the ball and get 10, 15 yards. It's, can you just move in the pocket? Just kind of know where to go, just like Peyton, just like Brady. There's a reason why that they improve an offensive line because they can either, one, get the ball out quickly, or two, they know where and when to move. And I think with Drew Lock, I think he showed some of that. He has that ability to move around, and he has the ability to get rid of the ball quickly. So that helped the offensive line a lot. And I remember just watching the games and looking through Twitter, and I barely even saw Garrett Bowles' name or the offensive lineman being talked about. It was how well Drew Lock was playing, and that's it, because he was playing well with that offensive line.
So I'm looking at Bowles' stats and penalty stats, and if you go to NFLpenalties.com, you can see it if you search Garrett Bowles. So it looks like in the last few weeks when Drew Lock was playing, he only got called and accepted for holding once, and that was week 16 against the Lions. However, on the year, he did have 6 declined holding penalties as well. So
Does it show when those decline penalties were?
not that I can see, no.
Okay.
So that's the thing. I mean, but if you go through the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, he had a 9-game streak there where he was getting holdings left and right. And some of those games, I'm pretty sure he had multiple holdings, or holding penalties called. Yeah, I'm with you. This doesn't give me. I mean, obviously, it's good for him if that's what he needs to kind of motivate himself.
Mm-hmm.
Do what you got to do. It's funny to make fun of it. And it's Garrett Bowles, so it's like he's got this narrative surrounding him. I don't think that he's a bad guy. I mean, obviously I've never met the guy, but he seems like he works hard. He just, for whatever reason, his technique isn't great, and he just likes to hug people. Hopefully that can change, and hopefully he can get better in year 4, or is he going into year 5? I think he's going into year 4. They
4,
declined
yeah.
the 5th-year option, but at the same time, I just don't have the confidence that he can be a great tackleman. Maybe he can be serviceable. We'll see hopefully, if Drew Lock stays healthy and if the season continues, a full slate of games with Garrett Bowles with Lock, and maybe that improves his performance. But I'm going to go off of what history says too at this point. This guy is what he is at this point. Now, maybe he can kind of reduce those penalties, but that doesn't change the fact that he'll still be liable to get those, and especially at the worst times too. Like whenever there's a big play, whenever there's a 40-yard Philip Lindsay run or a 27-yard catch by Sutton, I'm like, okay, where's it at? Where's the yellow flag? And it's usually on 72. Hopefully he can get it figured out though.
Yeah, and I think, like, I'm not saying he's gonna be like a Pro Bowl caliber left tackle like some people, but I think for this year, I don't think it was a situation where, because there's a lot of people that were upset that they did not go out and grab a tackle in the draft or even in free
Mhm.
agency. And to me, that it wasn't a priority. It's not. It's not a absolute priority. If he had 5 holding penalties in the last 5 games and was killing Drew Lock, yeah, then that's a priority. But the fact that Drew Lock came in and won 4 out of 5 games and put up the numbers that he did, and Bulls only had 1 accepted holding penalty and maybe a couple declined, it to me it's if he had, let's say, 10 to 12 I don't know how many holding penalties he had last year, but let's say he had 10. He probably had more than that. He probably had like what, 12. If he cuts it in
I'm
half.
looking at it now. It looks like he had 10. I feel like this is wrong. It looks like he had 10 total penalties. Let me just double check to make sure this is right, because I feel like he had more than this
I feel
too.
like he had more
Because
than
he
that
led the
too.
league.
I want to say 12, but let's just say he had 10. Then if he cuts it in half and he only has 5 next year, look, I'll take it. I think that's good enough for next year. They're not, there's no Super Bowl expectations for this team next year. Can they make the playoffs with Garrett Bowles having 5 holding penalties? Probably. They probably can. So if he just cuts it in half and has anywhere between, I would say, 3 to 7 holding penalties, anywhere in that range, fine. It's serviceable for next year, and then you can move on. And then first round next year, take a tackle or grab a tackle in free agency, whatever you need to trade for a tackle, whatever you need to do. But the opportunity that they had to help Drew Lock immediately with getting Jerry Jeudy, with getting KJ Hamler, that was a priority. Because yeah, you have Sutton, but there's really no one else. You don't really believe in Deshaun Hamilton. You don't believe in Tim Patrick, obviously.
Yeah.
So that was the priority for this team. Get those guys, because not only getting those guys will help Drew Lock, but it will also help the offensive line. Because if it's helping Drew Lock, he's going to get the ball out quicker, and they're going to be able to build an offense around Drew Lock and those weapons that they have to help the offensive line and to put a lot of points up. So to me, I trust what they're doing with that. It's hard to trust this team, especially as of late. I know that, but I think when you have the quarterback, a lot of issues go away, and I think that's one massive issue that maybe won't go away, but it will be a lot smaller next year.
Yeah, and looking at it, it looks like Bowles was called for 17 total penalties last year. And if I'm reading this right, only 10 were accepted, but he was called for holding 13 times. Again, I feel like that's off somehow, but I don't know. Either way, I agree with you. If he could just cut that in half. I mean, if we're hovering around the 8 mark, and maybe 4 of those are accepted, we'll take that. And it also just matters when these holdings are coming from.
Yeah.
And maybe that's a coaching thing. Maybe these coaches should realize, okay, in this situation, late in this quarter, or it's a big third down right before half, or in a 2-minute drill, maybe we should slide the protection a little bit, or maybe we should give Bowles a tight end right next to him, and maybe they can chip before they go out on their route, or maybe the running back, motions over and chips somebody. As they're breaking out on their route or something like that. Maybe that's a coaching thing and things they can do to help him out a little bit more. But at the end of the day, it's just he is what he is, and hopefully he can improve on on what he is.
Yeah, and to the coaching point, run the ball. Don't get
Yeah,
pass happy with this team. I get Drew Lock is the new fun toy to go out and, KJ Hamler, Jerry Jeudy, Sutton, Fant, all
yeah,
these guys, all these weapons, but you also have Philip Lindsay and Melvin Gordon. And we talked about Melvin Gordon in our last podcast. The dude can play. Philip Lindsay can play. These guys, you have a two-headed monster back there. You have to use them. They have to be getting, in my mind, Melvin Gordon should be getting 20 to 30 touches a game. Philip Lindsay should be getting 10 to 20 touches a game, at least. So if you go out and give Philip Lindsay 12 touches and Gordon 27 touches, and that, what is that equal? 39 touches total. If you can give
Oh
them,
boy,
if you can
math.
give them 40 combined a game, then great. But if it goes below that number and Drew Lock is throwing the ball 30 plus times, I don't care if it's 25 for 30, 450 yards and 5 touchdowns. You cannot do that every game. It will not work every game. You have to rely on Philip Lindsay and Melvin Gordon, at least for this upcoming season. And then next season, maybe if Drew Lock is showing what he can do, then yeah, you can go the Kansas City route and just go crazy. But until then, you have to rely on those guys, and those guys will help Garrett Bowles and the rest of the offensive line too.
If you had a workout video, what would it consist of? What would be your montage?
Um, anything involved with pivot.
So like
So
spoon
it really
feeding
just
him
turned
peanut
into
butter.
it really just turned into a pivot montage, but that's okay. I'm okay with
I would do anything food related. So
that.
crumble, anything pies, something like that. I would definitely put it in black and white. Put some sensual music behind it. Honestly, it wouldn't be like hype train. It would be like sensual, some Barry White stuff. But no, good on Garrett Bowles. I mean, hey, whatever you got to do to get yourself going for the year, do it. That's what we're looking for, and hopefully you can improve on it and stop hugging everybody. Damn it, like just block them. Use your hands sometimes. Don't put your nipples to their nipples. You don't need to do it. All right, moving on. Didn't know we'd get nipples in today in the podcast, but we did it. Maybe we should have did that challenge every day, every podcast. Let's try and fit a word in. Whoever does it wins. Trains. Speaking of trains, even though I never mentioned train yet, Chris Harris Jr. poo-pooing on Drew Lock's hype train.
I didn't see
Did
this.
you didn't see this? Okay, so he joined Colin Cowherd uh, last week sometime. I don't know what day it was, but I saw this. Somebody on Twitter tweeted the quote, and I was like, okay, this is interesting. I went and watched the clip this morning, and he joined Colin Cowherd, and Colin, he's a big Drew Lock fan. For anybody that hasn't known, Colin Cowherd is driving the bus. He has got the hat on, blue and orange glasses. He is ready for Drew Lock's season this year. Well, Chris Harris Jr. was on, and for those who don't remember, Chris Harris Jr. now plays for the LA Chargers, and he was asked about Drew Lock as a franchise quarterback, well, as a quarterback, what Chris Harris liked about him, what's his strengths, what's his weaknesses, and Chris Harris said, he can make all the throws, but we played subpar competition last year, and so you don't know if you really got a good look at him. Now, to Chris's defense, I went back and looked at the teams that the Broncos played last year. They did play the Chargers. I believe it was in week 13 or 14. At the time, the Chargers were 4-8. They were without Derwin James, if I remember correctly. So you have to take that in consideration. They played let's see. So it was the Chargers, and then they played the Lions in week 16, 3-11-1. They played the Raiders week 17, who were 7-8 at the time.
Oh.
Not great teams. They did play two really good teams in between there, though. Week 14, you had the 8-5 Texans, who Locke had his best game yet, and then week 15, they played Kansas City in the snowstorm. I don't know how much stock you want to put in that game.
Right.
I mean, the Chiefs blew them out, but I mean, if it was in Denver and it was that type of snowstorm, does Kansas City perform that well? I don't know. I mean, I think home field really played a huge edge in that, and plus, I mean, I don't know. It was just one of those games for Drew Lock. You just couldn't do anything. So when you hear that from Chris Harris, or when you hear that quote, what is your thoughts? Do you think there's bitterness behind that, or do you think he actually believes that Lock is just
I mean, I think if he had signed, say, a 2-3 year deal with Denver and stayed, I think that conversation would have been a lot different.
I agree.
But again, he is right to a certain extent. I mean, like the Chargers, yeah, they had a lot of injuries, and at that time, like you said, they were 4-8. And Drew Lock, 134 yards, 2 touchdowns, had a pick. It was his first game though, so okay. I mean, they won. He played okay. But after that game, I remember thinking, all right, well, that's not exactly what we wanted to see. He did make some throws and he played all right, but it wasn't anything. I wouldn't say it was good or even great. I would just say, okay, that was his first start. Let's see what he does next week. And then against the And then the next game was against the Texans, where he was 22-27, 309 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a pick. So that Texans team was a good team, but they didn't have J.J. Watt. I don't think the defense for that team was necessarily great. So, I mean, I guess I agree, but at the same time, that's an NFL defense and a team who is 8-5 at that time, and he, like I said, he had 5 incompletions. So, I mean, I don't know. I I'm not. I guess with Drew Lock, we just need to see more, and that's been kind of what we've really talked about the last however long. We just need to see more. 5 games is not enough, and it was just, to me, when you look at his stats, it was inconsistent, and that's what you expect from a rookie quarterback, just the inconsistency. But the fact that he did have those games in which he played great, I think he showed flashes, and I think that's what's so exciting about him. Um, so I guess at the end of the day, I guess I agree with Chris Harris. It's just, I mean, he's playing for the Chargers, right? So what are you really going to say at that point? If he was a free agent still, or even with the Broncos, I think he would have said a little bit more. But he's with the Chargers, so what really are you gonna
Right.
say?
I think two things can be true at the same time here. And I think he didn't say it in a way that was like, this guy is not the real deal. He sucks. He just pointed out, he said, yeah, he can make all the throws. He mentioned why he feels like the offensive players and maybe even defensive players gravitate towards towards Drew Lock, because he has that confidence, that swagger, whatever you want to call it. He has that, but he did say, he didn't say it in a way that he's like he sucks, but the way he kind of phrased it was like he has all this, but at the same time we didn't play the best of competition. And while that's true, we just went through it. They didn't play, the Ravens or top defenses week after week, but at the same time too, you can only play who's on your schedule. And at the same time, when you play those teams, whether good or bad, you're expected to perform well. Did Drew Lock perform well more often than not? Yes, he did. And he did show flashes to where you can be like, okay, wow, this guy has the potential. I agree that I think this is more so Chris kind of taking the side of, I'm a Charger now. Things didn't really end well in Denver. So I gotta pump this guy up a little bit because I know him and played with him, but at the same time, kind of bring him down a little bit. So it's not like, oh, yeah, I love that guy, he's going to be a star. Because a lot of defensive players, like I just saw, after I saw that, Justin Simmons came out and said, this guy has the it factor. And I'm pretty sure there was a point last year, and I was just trying to Google it, where Chris Harris, I believe it was him, said that he has the potential to be a star. Von Miller, it might be Von Miller's quote that I'm thinking of. Von Miller says he's going to be a future star in this league, and he hopes he's around when he reaches that stardom. So it's like, you have to take it with a grain of salt. Now, Chris did practice against Drew Lock. He's on the other side, so maybe he knows more things than we do. But at the same time, too, we know Chris Harris loves to talk, and we know he's a very emotional guy. He wears, his emotions on his sleeves. So when you don't get what you want out of the deal with your contract and how things ended up, I'm sure anything Bronco related, he's not going to have the best thing to say right now.
Right. Here's the thing though. If I told you, okay, this rookie in general played 5 games. He went 4-1. The team went 4-1, but he threw for 340 plus yards in one game and had just 2 touchdowns in that game. I believe 2 touchdowns. 3 touchdowns. He had 3 touchdowns in the game, so that's the one great game. The rest of the games, though, the most yards he threw for was 208. The rest were below 200, all in the 160s, 170s. What are you thinking?
Well, I mean, it depends on the context too. It all depends on the
Right.
context of it as well and how it looks. And even though he may not have had the stats to back it up, I mean, how many rookies are going out there putting up 300 plus yard games? I mean, other than Mahomes, who's just a freak and who had a loaded team, I mean, I just think you have to take it with a grain of salt. Now, is there things he can improve upon? Yes. I'm not ready to crown Drew Lock as some sort of franchise quarterback like a lot of Denver media or Denver fans may be willing to do. I'm not there yet. I actually think this year is going to be kind of a sophomore slump for Drew Lock. I think we're going to see him struggle, and I think the narrative might flip very quickly, like, oh, this guy can't play. And at that point, I'm going to be ready to be like, well, let's give this guy a little bit more time, especially with the circumstances of a shortened off season,
Mm-hmm.
a younger offense, a new coaching staff offensively. Now he really has a longer leash, as at least he should. But I think we saw the flashes that we didn't see with guys like Trevor Siemian, Brock Osweiler, Paxton Lynch, of course. You didn't see it with those guys. With Drew Lock, you at least feel it. You felt it in preseason, and you feel it with some of the throws he can make and do. You're like, wow, okay, this guy could actually be something. Now it's about being consistent and getting those technical things down of the sport.
Yeah, and I think for the people who I guess don't really believe in Drew Lock, like you said, I mean, you're just looking at stats. You need to know the context. You need to watch him play, and I think what I've seen from him the most, that I guess what gets me the most excited about him and makes me believe that he can actually be that next guy for this team is not how he played on the field, his stats or anything like that. It's his attitude. It's what I've seen from at least early on with his leadership and doing the workouts in the off season, even just during the games, being just out there, being a leader, being a quarterback. And those are the things that we didn't see from Trevor Siemian, really. We didn't. It was more of just. It was almost like a Kyle Wharton like feel where he was just kind of stone faced, and it wasn't really just. He didn't have that emotion. Brandon Allen had a little bit, but he didn't have the play to kind of go with it. Joe Flacco was a mess. So that's the thing that kind of stands out for me when I was watching Drew Lock. It wasn't just the throws that he was making or anything like that. It was his attitude. And this offseason shows a lot. Going out and meeting up with guys, doing the workouts, reaching out to Peyton. He's taking that step to being that guy instead of waiting for it to come to him. And that's the thing that's been most impressive for me. So
We'll see if all that pays off for him. All that, those extra steps, passing with guys, setting up times, talking with Peyton. Hopefully it works out, because we are in desperate need of a quarterback here, and we can't go through another 3 to 4 years without having one.
Right.
From one quarterback to another, though. Actually, let's pay off the title here. The Redskins, Washington. That team, they're possibly changing their name. This was a big story a few years back. Now it's coming back to fruition. I just saw not too long ago on Twitter that Roger Goodell posted a statement from the NFL saying that they've actually had talks with Dan Snyder about this in recent weeks, and they're kind of optimistic about where things are going. A lot of people are pushing for Dan Snyder to change the name of the Washington Redskins, which he should, because it's it's obviously pretty racist to anybody of Native American descent. So, with that being said, the Redskins put out a statement saying that they're going to undergo a thorough review of their name, which, I mean, you would think that means they're going to change it. If they put that out and they're like, nah, we're good, we're going to keep it, then it's kind of like that looks even worse. But if they do change their names, we saw the Washington Red Tails to honor the Tuskegee Airmen in World War II, the African American Airmen. That would be a really cool one.
Yeah, so I'm reading here, and again, taking this off Twitter. So if for the small chance that this is, I guess, not completely true, we apologize. We're just going off Twitter what we're seeing. But it does say the name Red Tail celebrates the World War II. How do you say it?
Tuskegee Airmen.
Yeah. Who were the first who were the first African American military aviators in the U.S. Armed Forces. The nickname Red Tails comes from their planes, which has had a distinct crimson tail. So, and then this person here on Twitter made like a logo for it, and like a jersey mock-up. So,
It would be
uh,
really cool, I think.
Ollie Connolly, if you guys want to go check it out, it's all over Twitter. But yeah, I like that. Generals have popped up. Let's
They can't
see.
do the Generals though.
No.
That's the team that continuously gets beat by the Harlem Globetrotters. So I don't think you'd want to be the Generals.
The Senators, the Warriors. Uh, let's see. I don't really see any other names right now. Um,
Yeah, I mean they can't really do, with DC, being that's where the White House is at and all the, patriotic. They can't really do the Patriots. I've seen the Sentinels as one as well. So I don't know. I mean, it's about time. But hey, I mean, use this time. I mean, as a time to rebrand. A new younger quarterback in there. You get a new name, maybe new jerseys with that,
mhm,
hopefully, or you could keep the
yeah.
the color scheme, but new jerseys. I mean, use this as a chance to kind of change the feel around the
Right.
Redskins, which has been an organization that has just been kind of dwelling in the bottom for a while.
Yeah, and I think Red Tails would be, especially in for today, and for the future of the league and just in sports in general, really the world. I think Red Tails is probably the perfect name. If they don't choose it and they decide on the Warriors, or if they don't choose that name, if there's a lot of people out there who want that name, and that's the name that's trending, that's the most popular, and let's say they don't choose it and they choose one of the other names, I mean, is it still okay? Are you okay with that?
I think what they should do, I think this is easy stuff, like for their social media department, put out a poll. I think they should brainstorm with
Yeah.
Dan Snyder. Hey, maybe these are a few of the names that we like. Let's put out a poll on Twitter, with three options, or put a fourth option. What another other, something the fans can suggest. Or maybe throw it out to the fans. Hey, give us 3 or 4 names, and the three most, or whichever come up the most, that's what we're going for. Let your fans decide, because ultimately they're the ones supporting you,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I mean, I think if they chose something other than the Red Tails, yes, it would be fine. I think for all the reasons you said, that would be a cool one, and plus it
Yeah.
just sounds
It
cool.
sounds,
Washington
yeah,
Red
it
Tails,
does. Yeah.
it sounds really cool. Obviously, it has historical significance. That would be something great to capitalize on, not only for that aspect, but for what that symbolizes and means in today's climate, to be a team that kind of gets in the foreground of that, from
Mm-hmm.
going from a team that's kind of been, not kind of, that has been, I don't want to say glorifying, but putting out a product that has a racist connotation to it. Now you can completely 180 switch the narrative, and kind of pump up something that should be pumped up, in these airmen that have a huge historical significance to this country. So hopefully they get it right. I mean, like I said, at the end of the day, use this as a launching pad to kind of switch the narrative, not only around your team and the name, but just the team and its performance. Maybe a new feel, a new look, a new name can kind of put some energy back into the building, and maybe boost up that organization somehow. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. Speaking of another team, the Green Bay Packers, first team to openly acknowledge that there may be a possibility that there's no fans at games this season, at least for them, which, the more we get to it, and that kind of coincides with the NFL slashing preseason games. Allegedly, it was week 1 and week 4 that they're going to get rid of. And then we see Brandon McManus, the Broncos kicker on Twitter, who's the Broncos rep for the Players Union. He's saying it might be 0 or 1 preseason game, which kind of conflicts with what the NFL is saying. The more we hear these things, the more I'm really doubting that we're going to get a full NFL season, to be honest with you.
Oh yeah, there's gonna be like, and it's, I know there's a lot of people out there saying, well, there's no way what happened to the MLB could happen to the NFL. The NFL is way more stable and blah 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 blah. They have the CBA, whatever. Look, this has never happened before. Like, there is no way to handle this. There's gonna be issues. There's gonna be players that aren't going to want to play. There's going to be players that are going to be trying to maybe take an advantage, take this like for, and try and get rid of all the preseason games because players don't like preseason games. There's gonna be a mess. There's gonna be a mess, and it's not gonna start on time. If you think it's gonna start on time, I think you're crazy. Could the regular season start when it was originally supposed to, which is early September? I guess, but the fact that I really don't. I think it could start maybe late September, if things all go well, and both sides agree to 1 or 2 preseason games, then maybe the season starts on time just because you're cutting out preseason games. But again, I think there's gonna be issues. I don't think players are gonna want to play preseason games. Especially when you are risking your health. And I think it's more of, why are we risking our health, the player's health, whoever, the coach's health, for games that don't matter? But from the NFL's point of view, they're losing out on a lot of money if they don't use these preseason games. Mm-hmm. And then the whole, are we going to allow fans in the stadium? That's a whole nother issue. And it's, like you said, the Packers are already thinking about, not allowing any fans there, and that's gonna hurt the NFL with money. So then, now that the NFL and the owners are saying, oh well, we're not gonna get the money that we want. Okay, well, are we paying players their full salary? And again, I don't know if there's something in the CBA that, says, hey, if this happens, players get a certain amount of money, whatever, and it's in there, it's already set. But even if it's set, there's still going to be issues. There's still going to be, talks of, okay, well, even though this is set, this isn't exactly what's happening, so we want this. The players go to the league and say, no, we want this. And the owners go to the players and say, no, we want. And there's going to be more and more issues as we get closer. So I would say, at the end of July, at the end of this month, we're going to start to hear, at least by the latest, we're going to start to hear that there's issues with the NFL, the NFLPA, and it's going to start to get, maybe not bad, but there's going to be issues that maybe will delay the season.
And this is why I said, and listen, I love sports just as much as anybody. I mean, this is obviously what I do for a living, what I work in. This is why I said way back, last month or the month before, whenever we started it, I just felt like we should just suspend sports. And I know it's not that easy because there's a lot of people's livelihoods that depend on, concession workers, security guards.
There's a lot of
not
money
just
involved.
Players, owner. It's just not that easy. Bars around stadiums, restaurants.
It's not just that too, though. It's the future of these leagues.
Right. And I just felt like, because I can already see it now. We're going to get a few games into this season. What if you're a team? What if it's the Broncos and 3 of your offensive linemen test positive and Drew Lock, or 2 of your defensive players? These players just don't grow on trees, especially if it's offensive linemen. Then what? What if it's the majority of your team? What if you can't bring a full team to compete? Do you just have to forfeit a game? Well, that's not fair. I mean, you lost because of the pandemic. I mean, so it's like, I just see this already happening to where games are going to be canceled. I highly doubt. I'm about 80 to 90% sure we're not going to play a full NFL season here. It's just not going to happen.
I think it relies a lot on the NBA and the MLB, right. And because they're going to start games here, it's crazy. It's exciting to think about it, and it's crazy. But we will have games in 27 days, at least for the NBA. I don't know when the NHL is starting. I don't know when the MLB. When is the MLB starting? July 30th.
I believe they're reporting to training either this next week or the week after. And then not long after that, they're going to be playing. I think the NHL isn't far behind too. I think they had a target date of late July as well. So.
Right. So we're 27 days from the NBA starting, and that's the big one. Uh, Again, there's only 12 players per team, so it's a smaller sample size. And even that with Major League Baseball, they have 25 guys.
Yeah, something
So
like that.
it's not, the NFL is very different in the fact that they have. But here's the thing: if the NBA comes out and we're playing and we get through say a couple weeks go by, we're at July 15th and we're solid. Maybe there's a couple players that have been tested positive, but it's something that's not spreading like crazy, right? And it's being handled really well. And the NBA is doing a very good job as far as controlling it within the bubble. Let's say that happens. Then I think then if that happens, I would say it is more than a 50% chance that the NFL starts on time. But if we start to see maybe half the league and it's spreading and it's getting bad, then there's no way the NFL will happen this year at all. So
I would say more so the NFL has the highest chance of
right.
being pushed off because I mean you're literally running into guys exchanging bodily
And
fluids
not
whether you
just
like it
that,
or not.
you have more athletes, you have more people, you're dealing with more people, and it's not like the NBA has an advantage here because you can put a court anywhere. I mean, look, we're gonna talk about the second bubble here in a bit. You could, if you wanted to, you could come here to Denver. You could do it. You could pull it off. You could go into the convention center. I mean, you saw it looks like Antioch in 2K.
Yeah, yeah, it literally does.
They put the courts side by side, and it's easy. It's easy. The one concern I have is injuries and how the court will, how stable it is. But obviously, they're gonna do their homework. I trust the NBA because the NBA has only done the right thing for the past, ever since Adam Silver has come in. Even before, they've always done the right thing. Except for maybe a couple moments, but for the most part, the NBA in my mind is the one league that I trust the most in all of this to handle everything the way that they should handle it. So if they come out and it's a disaster, then yeah, if they can't do it, if the NBA can't do it, no team will, because the NFL can't just put a 100-yard field, 120-yard field anywhere they want next to a bunch of you can't do it. It's not possible. So what are you? Is there going to be? So now you're saying, well, there's going to be traveling, maybe limited, but there's still going to be traveling now. Like you said, you're running into each other, and you're spitting in each other's faces.
Yeah, blood,
blood.
There's feces. People are peeing their pants sometimes. I mean, it's just everywhere. Like you're
Right.
bound to catch an infection.
So the NFL is at the highest risk. I would say second is the NHL, third is the NBA. The easiest sport to handle all this is Major League Baseball. And if baseball comes back, and all of a sudden they have a breakout where they are, if baseball can't do it, and the NBA is having issues, there's no way you can start the NFL season. There's not. So look, the NFL has an advantage because these other teams are starting earlier than them. They're either continuing the season or they're starting the season earlier. So the NFL has an advantage with that. They can kind of see what happens. So, if there is issues, they don't have to go through, we're starting and then you have to stop, right? Stop again. Like the NBA there's a risk where you're going to start and a week goes by and you're going to have to stop everything and it's completely failed and it's just a disaster. So if you're the NFL, you don't really want to take that risk. So you have that advantage of seeing what happens with these teams. But again, you're on another level. So even when you come back, you have to be extra precautious because you're traveling. The style of the game is not in your favor. The amount of players and the amount of personnel on the team is not in your favor. And now you still haven't announced that you're not allowing fans. So and I wouldn't put past the NFL, hey, everyone, come on. Let's, pack the stadium.
The baseball teams in Texas, they're like, yeah, let's just come on in. Come watch us.
I wouldn't put it past the NFL to just open the floodgates and act like everything is normal, because that's what they do. They don't handle these things safely. They just don't. They don't make the right decisions. We obviously know what has happened when, the NFL is in a position to make the right decision and they look the other way. Colin Kaepernick. There's plenty of, not just with Kaepernick and those issues, but there's plenty of other issues that the NFL has looked the other way. Off the field issues. Oh, yay, take a 5-game suspension. That's it. Oh, hey, well, you've been suspended 5,000 times. We'll bring you back. We'll keep on bringing you back and allowing you to play. And trust. There's plenty of examples where the NFL has made the wrong decision. Not to say that the NBA hasn't, but it's a whole lot less. So I just don't trust the NFL to making the right decision. I do trust the NBA, and so we will see what happens with the NBA and how they're handling it. I think they're handling it the best that they possibly could with the bubble. They have an advantage, with their play style and with how big courts are and whatnot. They have an advantage. So if everything goes well, then, okay, well, now let's look at the MLB. How's that? Because the MLB is a little bit closer to the NFL, and the fact that there is going to be a little bit of traveling. You can't put a baseball field anywhere you want, like a court. So, there's, baseballs go up hundreds of feet in the air, so you can't have a ceiling. So, that's the next step. Okay, how's MLB doing? Oh, are they doing well? They're having a very limited amount of cases. Okay, great. That's good for us. So in that case, then the NFL and the NFLPA will start to talk a little bit more. But again, if things go bad, there's no way they can.
My biggest fear is that just what if somebody catches this and dies?
Yeah.
And that's why,
Yeah.
and to kind of go to the NBA second bubble thing, I don't understand why they're signing off on a second bubble. So teams that didn't make it can play. Why? Why are we even putting these guys in even more unnecessary risk to do this? And that's my biggest fear, is that what if a player catches this, or a coach, or a GM, or somebody, because we don't know how this affects everybody. Obviously, it could be more serious for people with pre-existing conditions and those who are older. We get that. But we've seen healthy younger people get completely affected and impacted by this, and possibly or have died from it. Say, I just can't even think of it. Just an NBA player gets it and goes into some serious critical condition, or his career is derailed because of the after effects of this virus. I mean, is it worth it at the end of the day? And I know it's a bigger picture, and it's all about money at the end of the day for these leagues and these teams, and they're just going to keep on rolling. But it's just, man, that's another reason why I was like, you know what? If we could just bite the bullet for 1 year and come back next year when we hopefully at least have a vaccine and things are a little bit more stable, I'd prefer that. But the show must
and
go
it's
on.
not just the players. I think for me, the biggest concern is these head coaches, because they are in their 50s, 60s. Mike D'Antoni is how old? I think he's at the highest risk, right? He's the oldest coach. I
mean, him, Pop, Pop is up there.
Yeah, and Pop, yeah.
So, I mean, there's a lot of coaches out there that are at risk too. And not only that, these guys have families too, and obviously they won't be able to see their families when they're around.
Mike D'Antoni is
And that's another
69
thing I
years
have
old.
with, yeah, and that's another thing I have with the NBA too, they call it a bubble, but it's not a bubble because you're allowing workers to come
Right.
in and out that are going to work
They
there.
are talking about that now because it was brought up.
But it's like that made no sense to me, because you're having these players undergo this strict protocol of you can't, you can go out, but you have to stay here, or, stay within the resort and all. But, the workers can go out and live their daily lives, and then they're coming back. If they're asymptomatic and they just happen to come into contact with LeBron James, well, what if the guy that's bringing LeBron James's room service up, he just happens to have it, sneezes, doesn't cover his mouth that time, and it goes in LeBron James's toast that morning, and then boom, LeBron has it, and then it's whatever happens next with that.
Right.
So it's a huge concern. There's so many things that I feel like we could avoid, but I get it. It's just not as easy as saying we're just not going to play. There's so many things. It's a ripple effect either way.
Yeah.
It's really choosing which evil or which poison, which side. What do you want? Pick your poison. What do you want to have to deal with? And the NBA is possibly rolling with potential harsh sickness and death,
Yeah.
and as
Well,
well as the rest of the leagues.
Pop is 71. Rick Carlisle is 60. Doc Rivers is 58. Like, that's the concern for me is the coaches, and not just the head coaches, the assistant coaches, everyone. The players are at the least risk, right? I mean, they're healthy and whatnot, but again, like you said, it has affected healthy people. So it's rare. It's a rare chance, but it has happened, and so that's just if something like that happens, worst case scenario, and someone does lose their life because of this, then yeah, they're gonna have to shut it down. And at that point, like, and I'm sure they've talked about it, is it worth that risk? And that's why they've allowed people to say, hey, I'm not going. It is up to the players and the coaches. They are deciding to go and do this. If you had LeBron, Kawhi, like all these superstars, Giannis say, hey, we're not coming. And then you had, Pop, Mike D'Antoni, Rick Carlisle, all these coaches say, hey, we're not coming. Then, obviously they wouldn't go through with it, but they are risking it. And so, if something does happen, not all the blame should go to the NBA. If the worst case scenario happens,
Yeah,
a lot of the blame is going to go to the NBA. But they are giving these players and the coaches the option to go. I listened to a Michael Malone interview with a lot of the Denver media. I believe it happened a couple days. I don't know if it was yesterday, a couple days ago. I can't honestly remember. Yesterday was a long day, but he's concerned a little bit, but what he said was he trusts the NBA, and he trusts that the bubble will work, and that for him the hardest thing is not seeing his family, because they will not be able to see anyone for 60 to 90 days. Like, it's a long time. But he's, look, all these guys, they're taking that risk. And so if something does happen to one of them, I hate to say it's on them, but at the end of the day it is, because they're choosing to go.
Yeah, they had the choice to opt out,
right.
for sure.
Knowing their age, knowing if they have something, family history of some underlying illness, like they all know. And so, if they're willing to take that risk, then it's on them at the end of the day. Now, could the NBA have just said, no, forget it, we're skipping until next year? Yeah, they could have. But you got to also remember the NBA, there's a lot at risk here with money. And there's a reason why all these players and coaches are going. Because if the NBA doesn't continue their season and they lose out on all the billions of dollars, then it's going to affect salary in the future. And all these players are going to lose out on, the NBA has done all this, all this work to be able to, like, these max contracts, like, guys are signing $30 million deals a year. And if they don't continue to play, that could be cut in half. And we're back in early 2000s where the max deal was, I just watched the LeBron special. It was like he signed like a 4-year, $80 million deal. Like, like that's
what Alan Crabb is getting these days. That's what Gary Harris just signed.
Right. So you're back in those days, and these players don't want that. LeBron is smart. He doesn't want that. He makes a lot of money, and it's not just for him. He knows that this is for the rest of the league. This is for guys like Luka, for Giannis, for Nikola Jokic, for these young players that are going to be that are going to be running the league for the next 20 years. It's for these guys playing these games, in July or in August, September, October, November, whatever. It's for those guys. It's for so that the league can continue to be as dominant and as and continue the revenue that they've had over the last couple of years, and then not just that, but getting more and more and more. In 10 years, you're going to be seeing $50 million deals in a single season, for guys like Giannis and Luka. So it's for those guys, and it's for the league. So money is controlling pretty much this whole thing. Unfortunately, I mean that's just the reality of it. So they have.
That's a great point, though.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's same with the MLB, same with the NFL. There's a lot of money at stake.
And unfortunately, that's just what rules the world. So,
Right.
I mean, hopefully we can get through all this and guys come out as healthy as possible and we don't have any issues. Real quick update on the Washington name change situation. Mike Jones, who was a USA Today reporter, NFL USA Today reporter, he just tweeted out not too long ago, asked two different people very plugged into Snyder's decision making about this name review and chances of Redskins renaming. Both said it's over. Snyder's got no choice. Also, when FedEx, who is the name sponsor of the field, asks you to change, and then Nike apparently, and I went on the website this morning, they pulled everything Redskins related from their website. So, and Nike is the jersey sponsor. So he really, and that's unfortunately, is he doing this because it's the right thing to do, or is it because this is going to affect his wallet? It's probably the latter.
Right.
But at the end of the day, it's going to get changed, and that's where we're at with that. So good on the NFL and these other organizations kind of stepping up and fighting for what's right.
And it'll probably happen quickly too. I mean,
oh yeah, I would assume so.
Yeah, I would say
by start here soon.
Well,
so,
yeah. But yeah, they need to get new jerseys, logos, all that stuff. But I would say by our next episode on Tuesday, we'll probably get at least a like this is the tentative decision, not 100%, but it's the favorite. So we'll probably know by our next episode.
It's going to be interesting to see. We never got to it earlier, but before we wrap up, Cam Newton signing with the New England Patriots. For a moment there, Jarrett Stidham was like, "Oh yeah, baby, this is my squad. Time for the dynasty to start with me. I'm the new guy." And then the Patriots were like, "Yeah, not so fast. They ran Cam Newton. I believe it was a 1-year deal. Really interesting. I mean, I would have never pictured Cam Newton in a Patriots uniform with that organization. Cam Newton's more of an outspoken, type of guy, more outgoing. We know the Patriots kind of like to keep their players kind of insulated and not show as much personality. I saw a Boston radio station is already criticizing Cam Newton. He hasn't even played it down for them for how he celebrates his touchdowns. And it's like, oh my God. Like, what do you guys want? I mean, do you want Jarrett Stidham or do you want a quarterback that's at least somewhat competent? Now, I'm not the biggest believer in Cam Newton, but I'd rather have Cam Newton than Jarrett freaking Stidham. So, what are your thoughts on Cam going there? Does it make them a playoff contender?
If it wasn't the Patriots and any other team was in that situation, I would like it. But like you just said, the fit is not the best. But again, if it's not like Cam is a bad guy. Like, that's not the issue. It's just he is a little bit more outspoken. But I don't think it's a bad thing. Him being outspoken.
He's got a lot of personality.
Yeah, and I think you see it on the field. You see it, with his touchdown celebrations, which, okay, come on. What, you just want the Gronk spike and that's it? Like, geez.
The only thing I don't like about Cam Newton is his Instagram font decisions and how he tweets. Really confusing stuff.
Did you by the way, did you see the Edelman post and then Brady commented on it?
No.
So Edelman, I'm pretty sure this was real. I want to double check to make sure if you can find Edelman's Instagram. But it had Peyton. Brady commented, he's like, "I'll always be your number one," or something like that. So that was hysterical to me. I think on the field, I think it will be okay. But here's the thing you got to remember: that New England does not have very many weapons. You got Edelman, and that's it. So I don't know. Cam's gonna have to do a lot of running, I feel like, and if that's the case, he's gonna get hurt. I don't see it working out really that well because of that. If they had Gronk, if they had Edelman, if they had another receiver on the outside, say Antonio Brown had worked out and they had Antonio Brown still, something like that, then I'd be more like, okay, this can work. But Cam has no weapons there. And the only guy that could really succeed without any weapons was Brady. So if you really think you can do that with Cam or any other quarterback, you're going to lose a lot of games. And it's going to be a disaster. And unfortunately for Cam, it's going to fall all on him.
I think one thing they'll probably try to do, and we know with McDaniels there, he's going to cater to Cam's skill set. So I don't think they're going to force him to do anything that he isn't good at doing, like, throwing the football. He's not great at that, at being like a true pocket quarterback. So I think you'll see more runs, but like you said too, he's older now. He's a little bit more injury prone, so they have to be a little bit more clever with how they use that. I think this is a team that's just going to be run heavy and play defense. They're going to use that great defense they had from last year, and they're just going to try and run the ball, pass when necessary, try and just muck games up, win it 20-17 type of style. I don't think they're going to throw it all around the yard. Like you said, they don't have any weapons. I mean, they have N'Keal Harry, who they drafted a couple years back. Julian Edelman's kind of on his last legs, literally. I mean, the guy's like, he's getting banged up every year, it seems like, with those lower body injuries. But it's going to be an interesting thing. I think it keeps them relevant to an extent. Now, are they like some sort of AFC championship contender? I don't think so. But you never know with that defense. I mean, we've seen around here what a great defense can do for you. I mean, it can carry you all the way if it's really that great. So, I mean, maybe it keeps them relevant. Maybe they're, I don't know what their schedule is. Maybe they're an 8 to 10 win team, off the top of my head. But I don't know. I mean, I still think maybe the stranglehold isn't as tight. But if I had to choose someone, I mean, I guess Buffalo. But at the end of the day, do you believe in Josh Allen more in Buffalo, or do you believe in Cam Newton and New England Patriots and what they've done? So right. It'll be interesting. It'll be more of a 50-50, but I would still probably lean more towards the New England Patriots.
It'll definitely be the worst division in football.
Yeah. I mean, maybe. Yeah.
Because I think last year was the NFC East, but I think Dallas, Philly, the Giants might actually be better with Daniel Jones in his second year. I think that division will be solid. The AFC North, no, because you got Baltimore.
What about the AFC South?
I
mean, I guess you have Tennessee, who's a playoff team, and the Texans, who are a playoff team.
You have the Texans. The Colts will be interesting with Phillip Rivers.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. Yeah.
So yeah, I think the AFC East will probably be the worst team worst division in the league, unless Buffalo comes out and just does things. But other than that, I mean, it'd be just one team. So yeah, that's good. I mean, look, the Patriots have a chance. They have a chance with Cam and to win the division. Even with Stidham, to be honest, they had a chance.
You think so?
Yeah.
I think if they had Stidham, they would be maybe the third best team.
But I could see them going 8-8 and winning the division. So I mean,
it is Patriots.
Yeah, and it's also the Bills, the Dolphins, and I'm missing a team here.
Jets.
The Jets.
They're forgettable. It's okay. Everybody forgets them. It's fine. They're a thing, but it's fine. No one cares about them.
So yeah, I would say that puts the Patriots for the lead at least to win the division. But if I had to put money on it, I would go with Buffalo. I like Josh Allen.
Do you? I
Yeah,
don't.
I like Josh Allen. I think they can run the ball pretty well. They went out and drafted a receiver, I'm pretty sure. Or they signed someone. Who did they signed Diggs.
Mhm.
So
Yep.
their defense is really good. I think I would put my money on Buffalo right now, but that's just because Cam has no weapons. If New England goes out there and re-signs Antonio Brown, I don't know, does something, makes a trade. Some, I mean, I like you said, N'Keal Harry is solid, but I mean, I don't know. Can you really trust him? Can you trust Edelman to be healthy?
I think he had some injury issues last year, but he didn't really perform well, N'Keal
Right.
Harry. So I think that
Right.
again that was partly due to injury because I think he missed a good chunk of the season. But even when he was there, it just I mean, I didn't really hear. I mean, obviously, I don't watch the New England Patriots every week, but it didn't seem like he was popping off the screen. You
Right.
weren't hearing a lot of N'Keal Harry buzz off of Twitter or ESPN or
Mm-hmm.
NFL.com. That's for sure.
Yeah. So that's the issue with that. I don't know. We'll see, but really, what other team was going to sign Cam and allow Cam to be the starter? So it makes sense at that point. Like, it had to be the Patriots because there's no way he was going to take a sign with a team to be a backup. There's no way. And he shouldn't.
I just am waiting for, maybe the first text message from Cam to Bill. I wonder if it's in that weird font and just trying to see Bill Belichick trying to read this and immediately regretting what he just allowed to happen because he's like, is he talking to me through hieroglyphics? Like hieroglyphics?
Well,
Do I
I
have to
guess
like
the other issue too is, will Cam and Josh get along? Because we all know, especially like us, we know how Josh is with quarterbacks who speaks their mind. Like, I don't know if that's really gonna
it's going to
work
be an
out.
interesting fit, but we know he's one of the best offensive coordinators in the league, and when he has weapons, at least, it'd be interesting to see what he has now and how he
Right.
works things up with that. But that's going to do it for us today. We want to thank you guys for tuning in, whether you were watching via YouTube or if you're listening later on through Spotify, Apple Podcast, Anchor, Google Podcast, Pocket Cast, Breaker, Overcast, and Radio Public. We thank you for tuning in. Hopefully, Nikola Jokic is having a wonderful day and recovering nicely, and hopefully, someone sent some crumble his way. You can follow us on Twitter again before we head out at Brandon_Stoll for Brandon, at Stephen Priest Jr. for myself. Again, this has been the Behind the Glass Sports Podcast. We'll see you on Tuesday.